What if the same compound from an African shrub root can interrupt opioid withdrawal in 48 hours, cut PTSD symptoms by 88%, and help veterans with traumatic brain injuries reclaim their lives? I'm Elliot Hayes. Welcome to MedHeads. By the end of this, you'll know what Ibogaine is, what the data actually shows for traumatic brain injury and PTSD, not just addiction, why April's White House executive order is a bigger deal than most people realize, and the one safety challenge researchers are actively solving. Ibogaine comes from the root bark of the Tabernanthe iboga shrub, native to Gabon and Cameroon. Bwiti communities there have used it in spiritual ceremonies for centuries. Western scientists first noticed its properties in the 1960s, then it got swept into the war on drugs and landed as Schedule I in 1970. But people kept using it. Thousands have traveled to legal clinics in Mexico, New Zealand, and Europe, and researchers kept watching. Here's what makes Ibogaine unusual among psychedelics. It's showing signal across a striking range of conditions: PTSD, traumatic brain injury, depression, anxiety, and addiction. It is not a single disease drug. What does the actual science show? The landmark study was published in Nature Medicine in January 2024. Dr. Nolan Williams and his Stanford team followed 30 special operations veterans, most with traumatic brain injuries, PTSD, depression, and anxiety, who had largely exhausted conventional treatment options. They received a single Ibogaine dose, combined with magnesium to protect the heart, at a supervised clinic in Mexico. 1 month later, PTSD symptoms down an average of 88%, depression 87%, anxiety 81%. A follow-up published in NPJ Mental Health Research in January 2026 went deeper into what actually happens during those 24 to 36 hours. The researchers called it accelerated auto-psychotherapy, a compressed, self-directed healing process. Veterans described revisiting traumatic memories with fundamentally altered emotional weight, profound ego dissolution, a reappraisal of who they were and what they'd survived. Not talking to a therapist for years, something structurally different. So what about opioid addiction? That's where the Phase 2 trial data comes in. Ibogaine is also being studied specifically for opioid use disorder. Stanford's MYSTIC trial, Magnesium and Ibogaine, Study to Interrupt Cravings, is a Phase 2 randomized controlled trial. Early data shows around 71% of participants remained abstinent from opioids at 6 months. For context, current medications alone achieve roughly 30 to 40%. What's Ibogaine doing in the brain? It targets multiple receptor systems at once: opioid, serotonin, NMDA, and interrupts the neurological patterns that lock both addiction and trauma in place. The same multi-receptor action that may explain its effect on PTSD appears to also reset the craving circuits involved in addiction. Ibogaine prolongs what's called the QT interval, a measure of the heart's electrical cycle. Stretch it too far and there's a risk of serious arrhythmia. This is real. It's why Ibogaine requires medical supervision and exactly why the trials matter. Here's how researchers are solving it. The magnesium protocol used in the Stanford Veterans Study significantly reduced QT prolongation. Trials now add cardiac pre-screening, continuous ECG monitoring throughout, and strict single-dose rules. Under supervised conditions, no trial deaths have been reported. The safety work is happening because of the trials, not in spite of them. On April 18, 2026, President Trump signed an executive order directing federal agencies to fast-track review of psychedelic medicines, with Ibogaine explicitly named. The FDA is now issuing national priority vouchers that can compress drug review timelines from months to weeks. There's a new pathway for eligible patients to access investigational Ibogaine under the Right to Try Act, and $50 million in ARPAH federal funding has been earmarked to match state investments in psychedelic research, including the Texas Impact Trial, which is already running multi-site Ibogaine studies for PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and addiction. The DEA has also been directed to review rescheduling for any psychedelic that completes Phase 3 trials. That's the legal roadblock that held all of this back for 50 years, and it now has an official route to a different outcome.
Ibogaine's story.
a compound dismissed for 50 years that's now showing real signal for some of the hardest problems in mental health, is moving faster than almost anything else in psychiatry right now. PTSD, traumatic brain injury, depression, opioid addiction. One compound, multiple conditions, and a regulatory landscape that just shifted dramatically. Are you following Ibogaine research? Do you think the safety questions mean we need to pump the brakes? Or is it time to accelerate? Tell me in the comments. And subscribe for more evidence-first reporting on where medicine is heading. There's more coming.